RTS fans, the day has come. Tempest Rising might just be the game we've been waiting for. I got early access this week just before the deluxe release, and after sinking hours into it, I wanted to give you my early thoughts. This isn't a full review per se. I want to save that for when all functionality such as multiplayer is available, but I wanted to get this one out to you as soon as possible. So consider this a first impressions deep dive. We're going to talk visuals, gameplay, art style, and more. To avoid spoilers, I won't be talking about the story, but some of the gameplay showcased will be up to the third mission of each faction, so keep that in mind if that's something you're trying to avoid. Feel free to minimize the video and listen in, or click off and come back after you've played the game. Now let's jump right in. So given the current state of gaming, booting into Tempest Rising for the first time felt a bit like opening a time capsule if a time capsule had an early 2000s RTS game inside of it with 2020s graphics. Right away, the game immerses you into the setting. We're delivered an interesting cinematic that gives us context of what's happening, and it does a fantastic job of capturing the atmosphere we later experienced during the campaign missions. It's immediately clear Slipgate Ironworks had a vision here, and they intended to deliver. There's no bullshit, and the game didn't try to sell me anything right when I opened it, which is a plus. There's not even a cash shop that I could find, and I respect that. In all fairness, it's possible we might see some cosmetic options become available to us later on as the game ages, considering the fact that the deluxe version does come with cosmetics, but for the time being, it seems like the team isn't trying to shove microtransactions down our throats, and that's refreshing to see. Kind of like what Larian Studios did with Baldur's Gate 3, it seems like the team behind Tempest Rising wanted to develop and deliver a fully finished product to their audience rather than giving us something that was half-baked. The menu is sleek with a certain classic flavor to it, the factions are distinct from each other with their own theming and mechanics, and the environmental designs for the maps are gritty and cool, which is another plus for me because I feel like the cartoony graphics in my RTS games give them a kind of mobile gaming vibe. I understand that's subjective, but it's just not what I'm looking for. And the soundtrack, man, it is so sick. You know what? Let's just jump right into sound design and music. I can't believe I'm gonna go full brain rot on this one. It slaps. That's the most honest way I can put it. Slipgate Ironworks throws high-octane electronic and rock tracks that get your blood pumping during engagements. And the music often seems to fit the theme of what's happening, which is really cool. Although I did notice the game would play hardcore metal rock music at me while I was trying to figure out what the hell my macro was. The unit sound design is also well done, with classic RTS fare.
Target spotted. Acknowledged. Stay back.
Gruff soldiers, punchy weapons, and weighty explosions. Slipgate Ironworks, in my opinion, nailed it on the head with sound. They achieved a good balance of immersing you in the action while simultaneously telling you exactly what's happening on the battlefield. There's a certain tactile feel I got while controlling my units and hearing their verbal feedback. Another really cool aspect of sound design to note is that when you tap through different units in a control group, those units confirm that they've been selected, so you know exactly what unit and what abilities are ready to go. Although I will say this, I preferred the voice acting in the missions themselves rather than during the mission briefings. Some of the voice acting was maybe a little bit awkward at times, but nothing too drastic, and it's definitely serviceable. Overall though, I think where sound is concerned, I think the game really shines with its music. It just fits so well with the art style and gritty identity that this game has, and that leads us to the next topic I want to cover. Graphically, Tempest Rising is pretty damn good. It's not trying to be photorealistic by any means, but for an RTS, it stands out. Without spoiling anything, the game is set in the 90s, and it really does feel like what a 90s game would be in both music and art style if the 90s had better technology to develop games. The gritty artwork is part of the game's core identity and does a great job with immersion, especially with its environmental detail. For example, the red Tempest stuff you harvest as a resource has a really clean contrast from the rest of the environment. You'll have dark blues and crimson reds glittering across your screen and really adding to the dark vibe. It gives me an almost Stranger Things sort of feel. And I haven't finished the campaign yet, but the design of the game alone makes me curious as to what the origin is behind this mysterious horror plant. Now, I will say a lot of the units are easily readable on the battlefield, particularly the mechanical ones, but I personally did have trouble differentiating some of the infantry units on the fly. There was one specific moment in my playthrough where I had trouble distinguishing between my drone operators and my field scouts, which took a slight hit on my micro, but I suspect as I play the game more, my old eyes will become better adjusted to look at those units, but only time will tell. If you love the isometric military style games like Red Alert, this game feels a lot like that, but viewed through a more modern lens. Overall, there's a deliberate retro vibe going on, which makes sense given the game's setting. Environments are packed with detail, craters, wreckage, and glowing resource nodes. The UI is also crisp and functional without feeling bloated, and while there is a bit of a learning curve getting started, especially for StarCraft players like myself, the game feels awesome to play, and that brings us to gameplay. If you've ever played classic RTS games from the late 90s or early 2000s, you'll feel right at home here. Tempest Rising embraces the classic base building, resource managing, macro and micro style gameplay that many RTS players are familiar with. We have power plants to manage power consumption of buildings, resource gathering from those Tempest fields, macro structures to pump out units, and specific unit abilities all at your disposal. One thing that I mentioned in previous videos is that a lot of current RTS games feel like you're playing them underwater or make it feel like your units are walking around in the mud. This is part of why it's been so hard for me to move on from the StarCraft franchise in general. Units feel snappy and responsive in both StarCraft 1 and StarCraft 2. However, Tempest Rising feels a lot more akin to the snappy and responsive style of play. Units feel satisfying to move across the map, and they don't feel too slow. And speaking of AI, even on hard mode, there were times I felt I should have aggroed more units than I did. For example, in one mission, I attacked a unit by a watchtower and only pulled a few of the enemy units next to it, where I felt like I should have pulled all the enemy units in that area. Now, unlike in StarCraft 2, you don't need to select your buildings to macro. Once your macro structures are built, all you have to do is select the type of unit or structure you want to build from a UI element on the right-hand side of the screen. This is really nice from a quality of life perspective, but I could imagine it might be received with mixed reviews. However, overall, I think it's nice to have. As a StarCraft player, it did take me some time getting used to, which I find ironic because objectively, it's easier to macro all from one menu option rather than selecting the buildings themselves, although both options are available to you. Now, there are two main factions to play in the campaign of Tempest Rising, the GDF, Global Defense Forces, and the Tempest Dynasty, both of which have unique mechanics to separate each other. The GDF feels like your traditional high-tech military force with tanks, choppers, drones, and support abilities, all reliable and straightforward. In Mission 2 of GDF, you even have the option to drop a sort of support beacon that allows you to build structures outside of your normal range. This means not only could you build offensive static defense structures, but you can also expand and put down another refinery near a resource spot outside of your main base. This opens up a lot of potential strategic options, not only for expanding, but also attacking. Looking at our second faction, the Tempest Dynasty, they feel a bit more exotic. They have cult-like themes, flamethrowers, and unorthodox tactics, including setting your own buildings on fire by overpowering them to produce things faster. So while the GDF feel a bit more like an organized military, the Dynasty has an almost Mad Max mixed with Dune sort of vibe. You drop mines from the sky, you have vehicles that shoot fire, and you can burn buildings to damage GDF units hidden inside of them. Another difference between the factions is how they macro. Where the GDF build things all at once and spend money continuously while building things, the Tempest Dynasty effectively bank their structures and place them down once they are already paid for and built. This means that you don't have to risk as much while building your structures because they get placed down virtually instantly once you build and store them. But keep in mind that once a structure is finished, you have to manually deploy it before building the next structure, so you can't just bank 20 missile turrets and deploy them all at once, which would be insane. Effectively, raising structures is a two-part process for the Dynasty. You build and then deploy. For now, I feel like I'm just scratching the surface of potential meta in this game, but even at this stage, I can tell they were designed with contrasting playstyles in mind, and I'm excited as hell to see what other players come up with. So is this the RTS comeback we've been waiting for? That's a big question, but so far, I honestly see a lot of promise here. It has the DNA of the greats, a solid foundation for competitive and casual play, and it feels better than any recent RTS I played. Now, do I think it has what it takes to enter the world of esports? Right now, it's hard to say, and given the giant shoes StarCraft has left to fill, even if the competitive aspect of the game was phenomenal, it might be hard to live up to StarCraft's legacy. For now, I think we need to give it more time to see how much traction the game gets and how the competitive meta evolves as people play the game. What's important to me is that it doesn't feel like a mobile port or a watered-down tactics game. It feels like an RTS game made by people who love the genre, and that's already a huge win. So do I think you should buy this game? If you're into RTS, it's definitely on my list of recommendations. I'm having so much fun with this game so far, and in a way it feels like we're going back to the roots of RTS gaming, which is something I didn't think I'd experience for a very long time, if ever. I haven't finished the campaign yet, but so far it's so much fun, and with multiplayer competitive play, I think you'll get a hell of a bang for your buck. The value of this game is already really good, especially when you compare it to the fiasco that is Nintendo trying to push $90 versions of games, but that's for another video. On Steam right now, the deluxe version is available to purchase for $50, which grants you 1 week early access to the game along with some other features, or alternatively, you can also get the base version of the game for $40, which I tend to recommend, especially considering that online meta will really open up as more players enter the scene sometime after its full release on April 24th. If you've had your eye on this game, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Are you excited? Skeptical? Was my take astoundingly off? If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to demolish that like button and toss me a subscribe while you're at it. Thanks for watching.